After a horror few weeks at Carlton, things have reached a tipping point. The team's effort against Port Adelaide on Thursday night was the low point of the season and officially ended any hopes of the Blues making a last-gasp top 8 rush in the back third of the year. But we all know the problems on the field, both with personnel and the system. It's culminated in brutal media criticism and analysis, with the end question now of what changes. Michael Voss is central to that and is fighting for his coaching life at Carlton. But the run of form has sparked deep questions about the Carlton Football Club. How can one of the biggest sporting organisations in the country be down for so long? At this point, it has to be deeper than the players and coaches and might sit within the essence of the club. Right now, that essence has become toxic and only added to the volatility of the club. Let's get straight to the fans. Passionate is an understatement. The Blue boys and girls who flock to the games are as hardcore as any supporter base in the world. Jared Waitley on AFL 360 after the North Melbourne game described the club as overly emotional, with the fans being central to that. Now that is not a pot shot, but it is the reality when a club has such a large following that runs generations deep, and many of those generations have seen premiership success. That success has been dry for 30 years. The ultra hardcore even spilled into vandalism after the Port Adelaide loss. Now I know this is the literal 0.1% of all Carlton fans and members, and it is unnecessary, but it does go to show the passion and want for success. Overly emotional, yes, but it is for the right reasons, and that is always important to keep in mind. Throw in online Carlton fan shows such as Blue Abroad, who gets tens of thousands of views on fan cam videos, The Sabbath Show, who does Carlton analysis, and My Blue Heaven as just a few examples of the most popular Carlton YouTube channels. The fan base is wide and has legitimate outlets online that add to the speculation, criticism and noise. Again, this is all warranted and part of the caper, but it is exponentially louder for Carlton, and that adds to the pressure cooker. Because of the club's following and over the past couple decades, tragic nature of Carlton, they are a top priority for the AFL media. They lead the sports programs and sometimes the news, as we have seen in the past couple weeks. Everyone, and I mean everyone, has a say on Carlton and how they are going. The Herald Sun interviewed former coach Mick Malthouse, who we will have a look at later. Former president and premiership star Stephen Kernahan spoke out. Full forward Brendan Favola wanted the entire board sacked. And even comedian and long-time die-hard Blues fan Dave Hughes wrote an article for the Herald Sun. It's even more opinions, media and noise to throw on top of the ultra-passionate Carlton fans. This is no one's fault at all, but a part of Carlton. Look at other smaller Victorian clubs like St Kilda, the Western Bulldogs, Melbourne and North Melbourne. Sure, when they struggle, the media focus and talk about them is strong, but it's nowhere near the level Carlton gets. How many times have you seen either of these clubs lead a major network news bulletin after one bad loss? I can't remember a single time of late, yet Carlton has been for 2 weeks running. Is it a bit toxic? Sure, but it's in the DNA of the club that this volatility happens when things go bad, and they're a massive drawcard for media outlets, especially in Victoria. Similarities can also be made to Essendon, both hugely successful clubs in the old VFL, but not so much in the AFL. Both have had a raft of failed coaching appointments, and both have had board instability and revolts during the course of the last 25 years or so. Let's take a look at the most telling of the articles, which was the Herald Sun, who interviewed Mick Malthouse. Now obviously he struggled at Carlton and got the sack after just 2.5 seasons, so perhaps take all of this with a grain of salt, but it is a first-hand viewpoint of the inside workings and feel at Icon Park and the complexities of it. Then I went to Collingwood, who had roughly the same amount of premierships at Carlton, but Maguire never once mentioned the past, but he mentioned Olympic Park, where Melbourne were first cab off the rank if they wanted it, but couldn't understand why you'd want a dog track for a football field. But Maguire saw the future, and we just spoke about where we wanted the place to be. Then I went to Carlton and they go, "You know we've won 16 premierships," and I said, "Well, I can only count one because I only deal in AFL. No, we've won 16. Is it possible the past of the Blues is what is holding them back?" Malthouse mentioned the large influence of what he called wealthy money men and the continual noise around that. Again, not too dissimilar to Essendon, who had Kevin Sheedy on the board wanting to return James Hird as senior coach, and a report by Caroline Wilson this season that others in the works at the Bombers wanted Hird back again. These behind the scene plans and disagreements with powerful people are what can hold clubs back, and it seems the Blues have dealt with this a lot. Malthouse further went on to say, "And then people who should have known better. The first luncheon, not the second, not the third, the first. A former player gets up and bags my selections for the side that I put out on the track for the first game, and you think, wow, a former player has that sort of impact, and then you meet with the board to deliver your football notes, and you think, my God, this is a really different place. I'm not saying it's bad, I'm not saying it's wrong, it's just different. I could not have got two better people supporting me when I first arrived there. Stephen Kernahan is one of the most outstanding people I've ever met in football, and Greg Swan, his history speaks for itself. But within 12 months, they were both telling me they have to go, so stability is not exactly their strong point." So let's move on to the board. It was the main target of one of the graffiti writings outside Icon Park. One frustration from Carlton fans and people is that the club seems to prioritise marketing and finances over football. So let's look at who is on the board. 6 of the 8 are what you would call businessmen and women with backgrounds and roles in finances and marketing. The only 2 with football knowledge and experience are Greg Williams, who won the Norm Smith Medal in 1995, the club's vice president in Pat Connersley, who was a prominent VFLW player and represented Victoria 10 times. Now, most boards at AFL level are made up of business people like Carlton's, but clearly it does lack AFL knowledge. Pressure will begin to mount on them as they are the key decision makers at the end of the day. Fans will ask the question about football and if it is this board's number one objective. Malthouse further told the Herald Sun, "The core thing is football, not business deals. Not in 1995 we won the premiership, or in 1981 and 1982. Carlton is a deeply complex club, it just is. Who knows where a fix comes from when the issues and volatility is literally in the walls. A big club with a big fan base and big opinions on them from inside and out make it nearly impossible to keep everyone on the straight and narrow. Their arch rivals in Collingwood have been able to do that with an equally large fan base and presence, and that only rubs more salt in the wounds right now. It looks like the club's one shining light is Graham Wright, who did solve many of the Pies' issues going into 2022. The Messiah complex itself has hurt Carlton in the past, but with such a messy year so far, maybe Wright has the magic touch to unite Carlton and get everyone on the same page with a plan. That certainly is easier said than done, and history is proving that.